Good morning. Welcome to the 2020 City of Elmhurst Arbor Day Celebration. My name's Mark Stevens and I'm the Superintendent of Forestry for the City of Elmhurst. Usually in past years we've done tree plantings at schools or in parks or in other locations. Unfortunately this year, due to COVID, we've had to change things up slightly. So this year we're going to do things a little differently. We're going to do an interview with me, we're going to do a reading of the Lorax, and then I'll finish by reading the Mayor's Proclamation. Forestry Division for the City of Elmhurst is responsible for all of the public trees on the parkways and on public grounds. The work on the trees can range anywhere from trimming the trees. Unfortunately, sometimes when they get sick or have damage, we have to remove the trees. And at that point, we'll take the stumps out of the ground and restore the parkways. Probably one of our biggest tasks is planting trees. We plant about 500 trees every year. Just depends on the number that we need. And we're also responsible for all the public grounds, whether that's mowing or landscape maintenance. Pretty much anything that goes on outside dealing with trees or landscaping is the responsibility of the Forestry Division. The City of Elmhurst has well over 100 different species of trees in the City of Elmhurst, and they can range anywhere from smaller ornamental trees like crab apples, all the way up to giant street trees like oaks and maples. We try to plant a wide variety of trees. That way we have a diverse palette of trees within the City of Elmhurst, and we're always trying out new trees to see what we can add to the planting list. We plant usually about 500 trees. That'll depend on the number of removals we've had to do. We also take resident requests. So it really depends on the needs of the city at that time. We don't have a set number. We just try to replant whatever we've lost or wherever we have planting locations. The city takes a look at how many tree species we have currently and the number of trees we have. It can get down to looking at an area to see what tree species aren't prevalent in that area. We're also trying to plant the right tree in the right place. So under power lines, we're planting smaller ornamental trees so they don't grow up into the power lines. And then where we have room, we're always trying to plant the largest tree we possibly can to give people shade and for the beauty of the trees. Most of the time we're replacing trees that have been removed, so that answer is kind of given to us. We're just replacing one for one. However, we're always looking for new areas to plant trees or open planting spaces. And anytime a resident calls in and requests a tree, we go out and evaluate their parkway and try to give them a tree or as many trees as we can for that specific location. Currently, the invasive species and invasive diseases that we've seen, in the past we had to deal with Dutch elm disease attacking our American elms and killing our American elms. Recently, of course, as most people probably know, the emerald ash borer has attacked our ash trees in town. And a lot of these pests come from other countries unknowingly, and by the time we know about them, they've already infected the trees. So we're always on the lookout for new pests and diseases that are attacking. Favorite part of my job would be helping the residents of Elmhurst. Whether that's through service requests, phone calls, however I get the requests that come in. I really enjoy going out, meeting with residents, trying to help them, educate them, trying to get them to understand why the Forestry Division does what it does. And it's always a pleasure to deal with the residents. I know that they're as helpful to us as we try to be to them. And I really do appreciate all the support the forestry and the city gets from the residents of Elmhurst. Actually, 2020 is the 40th year that the city's been named a Tree City USA. The National Arbor Day Foundation runs that program, and every year the city of Elmhurst has to show a certain level of care for its trees, run certain programs, and meets other criteria, including having an Arbor Day celebration, which we're doing today. 40 years, we're actually tied for second place in the state of Illinois for the longest number of years being a Tree City, USA. Okay, so as I stated earlier, normally on Arbor Day we do a tree planting. So in lieu of that this year, because of COVID, I'm going to read Dr. Seuss's The Lorax for everyone. The Lorax by Dr. Seuss. At the far end of town where the grickle grass grows, and the wind smells slow and sour when it blows, and no birds ever sing excepting old crows, is the street of the lifted Lorax. And deep in the grickle grass, some people say, if you look deep enough, you can still see today where the Lorax once stood just as long as it could before somebody lifted the Lorax away. What was the Lorax? And why was it there? And why was it lifted and taken somewhere? From the far end of town where the grickle grass grows. The old Onceler still lives here. Ask him, he knows. You won't see the Onceler, don't knock at his door. He stays in his lurkum at the top of his store. He lurks in his lurkum cold under the roof, where he makes his own clothes out of miff-muffered moof. And on special dank midnights in August, he peeks out of the shutters. And sometimes he speaks and tells how the Lorax was lifted away. He'll tell you, perhaps, if you're willing to pay. On the end of a rope, he lets down a tin pail, and you have to toss in 15 cents and a nail, and the shell of a great-great-great-grandfather snail. Then he pulls up the pail, makes a most careful count, to see if you've paid him the proper amount. Then he hides what you've paid him in his snub, his secret strange hole in his groovyless glove. Then he grunts, I will call you by wisp-o-phone, for the secrets I tell you are for your ears alone. Shloop! Down sloops the wisp-o-phone to your ear, and the old Onceler's whispers are not very clear, since they have come down through a snurgly hose, and he sounds as if he had smallish bees up his nose. Now I'll tell you, he says, with his teeth sounding gray, how the Lorax got lifted and taken away. It all started way back, such a long, long time back. Way back in the days when the grass was still green, and the pond was still wet, and the clouds were still clean, and the song of the Swami Swans rang out in space. One morning I came to this glorious place, and I first saw the trees, the truffula trees, the bright-colored tufts of the truffula trees, mile after mile in the fresh morning breeze. And under the trees I saw the brown barbaloots, frisking about in their barbaloot suits, as they played in the shade and ate truffula fruits. From the ripulous pond came the comfortable sound of the humming fish humming while splashing around. But those trees, those truffula trees, all my life I'd been searching for trees such as these. The touch of their tufts was much softer than silk, and they had the sweet smell of fresh butterfly milk. I felt a great leaping of joy in my heart. I knew just what I'd do. I unloaded my cart. In no time at all, I had built a small shop. Then I chopped down a truffula tree with one chop. And with great skillful skill and with great speedy speed, I took the soft tuft and I knit it a thneed. The instant I finished, I heard a gazump. I looked, I saw something pop out of a stump of the tree I chopped down. It was sort of a man. Describe him? That's hard. I don't know if I can. He was shortish and oldish and brownish and mossy, and he spoke with a voice that was sharpish and bossy. Mister, he said, with a sawdusty sneeze, I am the Lorax. I speak for the trees. I speak for the trees have no tongues, and I'm asking you, sir, at the top of my lungs. He was very upset as he shouted and puffed. What is that thing you've made out of my truffle a tuft? Look, Lorax, I said, there's no cause for alarm. I chopped just one tree. I am doing no harm. I am being quite useful. This thing is a thneed. A thneed's a fine something that all people need. It's a shirt, it's a sock, it's a glove, it's a hat. But it has other uses, yes, far beyond that. You can use it for carpets, for pillows, for sheets, or curtains or covers for bicycle seats. The Lorax said, Sir, you are crazy with greed. There is no one on earth who would buy that fool thneed. But the very next minute I proved he was wrong, for just as that minute a chap came along and thought that the thneed I'd knitted was great. He happily bought it for $3.98. I laughed at the Lorax. You poor stupid guy. You never can tell what some people will buy. I repeat, cried the Lorax, I speak for the trees. I'm busy, I told him. Shut up, if you please. I rushed across the room and in no time at all built a radio phone. I put in a quick call. I called all my brothers and uncles and aunts and I said, listen here, here's a wonderful chance for the whole Onceler family to get mighty rich. Get over here fast. Take the road to North Nitch. Turn left at Weehawken. Sharp right at South Stitch. And in no time at all in the factory I built, the whole Onceler family was working full tilt. They were knitting thneeds just as busy as beads to the sound of the chopping of truffle trees. Then, oh baby, oh, how my business did grow. Now chopping one tree at a time was too slow. So I quickly invented my super axe hacker, which whacked off the 4 truffle trees in one smacker. Where we were making thneeds 4 times as fast as before, and that Lorax, he didn't show up anymore. But the next week, he knocked on my new office door. He snapped, I am the Lorax who speaks for the trees, which you seem to be chopping as fast as you please. But I'm also in charge of the brown barbaloots who played in the shade in their barbaloot suits and happily lived eating truffle fruits. Now, thanks to your hacking my trees to the ground, there's not enough truffle fruit to go round. And my poor barbaloots are all getting the crummies because they have gas and no food in their tummies. They loved living here, but I can't let them stay. They'll have to find food, and I hope that they may. Good luck, boys, he cried, and he sent them away. I, the Onceler, felt sad as I watched them all go. But business is business, and business must grow, regardless of crummies and tummies, you know. I meant no harm, I most truly did not. But I had to grow bigger, so bigger I got. I biggered my factory, I biggered my roads, I biggered my wagons, I biggered the loads of the thneeds I shipped out. I was shipping them forth, to the south, to the east, to the west, to the north. I went right on biggering, selling more thneeds, and I biggered my money, which everyone needs. Then again he came back. I was fixing some pipes when that old Noose's Lorax came back with more gripes. I am the Lorax, he coughed and he whiffed. He sneezed and he snuffled. He snargled, he sniffed. Onceler, he cried with a cruffulous croak. Onceler, you're making such smogulous smoke. My poor swami swans, why they can't sing a note. No one can sing who has smog in his throat. And so, said the Lorax, please pardon my cough. They cannot live here, so I'm sending them off. Where will they go? I don't hopefully know. They may have to fly for a month or a year to to escape from the smog you've smogged up around here. What's more, snapped the Lorax, his dander was up. Let me say for a few words about gluppity-glup. Your machinery chugs on day and night without stop, making gluppity-glup, also schloppity-schlop. And what do you do with this leftover goo? I'll show you, you dirty old Onceler man, you. You're glumping the pond where the humming fish hummed. No more can they hum, for their gills are all gummed. So I'm sending them off. Oh, their future is dreary. They'll walk on their fins and get woefully weary in search of some water that isn't so smeary. And then I got mad. I got terribly mad. I yelled at the Lorax, now listen here, Dad. All you do is yap, yap, and say bad, 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 bad. Well, I have my rights, sir, and I'm telling you, I intend to go on doing just what I do. And for your information, you Lorax, I'm figuring on biggering and biggering and biggering, turning more truffula trees into thneeds, which everyone needs. And at that very moment, we heard a loud whack. From outside in the fields came a sickening smack of an axe on a tree. Then we heard the tree fall, the very last truffula tree of them all. No more trees, no more thneeds, no more work to be done. So in no time my uncles and aunts every one all waved goodbye. They jumped into my cars and drove away under the smog-smuggered stars. And all that was left neath the bad-smelling sky was my big empty factory, the Lorax, and I. The Lorax said nothing. He just gave me a glance. Just gave me a very sad, sad backward glance as he lifted himself by the seat of his pants. And I'll never forget the grim look on his face when he hoisted himself and took leave of this place through a hole in the smog without leaving a trace. And all that the Lorax left here in this mess was a small pile of rocks with the one word, unless. Whatever that meant, well, I just couldn't guess. That was long, long ago, but each day since that day, I've sat here and worried away. Though through the years, while my buildings have fallen apart, I've worried about it with all of my heart. But now, says the Onceler, now that you're here, the word of the Lorax seems perfectly clear. Unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing is going to get better. It's not. So catch, calls the Onceler. He lets something fall. It's a truffula seed. It's the last one of all. You're in charge of the last of the truffula seeds, and truffula trees are what everyone needs. Plant a new truffula. Treat it with care, give it clean water and feed it fresh air. Grow a forest, protect it from axes that hack. Then the Lorax and all of his friends may come back. The end. Before we close today, I'd like to read the official Arbor Day Proclamation signed by Mayor Morley. Whereas the City of Elmhurst has again been recognized as a Tree City USA by the National Arbor Day Foundation and named a growth community for continued advancement in community tree care programs and policies, and whereas the year 2020 marks the 40th time that Elmhurst has received a Tree City USA designation, and whereas the trees are beautiful additions to our neighborhoods, parks, and shopping areas that increase the value of our properties, conserve energy, help clean the air, protect rivers and streams, and provide homes for birds and other wildlife. And whereas the employees of the Forestry Division of Public Works provide an essential service to Elmhurst by planting and caring for the trees that enhance the beauty and quality of life in our community. And whereas the City of Elmhurst will observe National Arbor Day on Friday, April 24th, 2020, with a reading of Dr. Seuss's Lorax and an interview with the Superintendent of Forestry for the City of Elmhurst. Now, therefore, I, Steve Morley, Mayor of the City of Elmhurst, do hereby proclaim April 24th, 2020 as National Arbor Day in the City of Elmhurst. Thank you for joining us today for our Arbor Day celebration here in the City of Elmhurst.